Michelle Garcia with Seattle Spiritual Foundation, and this is another interview we have for you this beautiful Sunday. We are going to be connecting with this wonderful man whom I've known many, many years, Larry, and a journey we will hear today about his recovery and what that looks like. I believe this to be insightful and inspiring, and I look forward to sharing with you later. Your comments would mean a lot to us. We'd like your input afterwards. And let's introduce you again, Larry.
Hi, my name is Larry C., and I've been around this camp 12-step program since 1985. I have 12 years of continuous sobriety on this particular sobriety. I did not work the program perfectly, apparently, or perhaps I did work it perfectly because I'm still in here. And we just don't know. So, I came back from New Hampshire. I was buying a house in New Hampshire, and I got a call that my mother was drinking at 9 o'clock in the morning, and she was making 0 cents. And my sister was very, very upset, and I had a dream that if I did not do anything, that it would be very possible I'd come back home, and the family house would be sold, and Mom would be living in an apartment drinking herself to death, and Dad would be on some other apartment, and the house would be sold, and everybody would be scattered. So I came back from New Hampshire to Los Angeles and called around to see what I could do with Mom. And as it turns out, I ran into alcohol program for women that I was able to do an intervention at the direction of alcoholic program for women staff. And I drove my mother down to their location, which is probably less than a mile, and I realized that I had seconds to get her in the car and get the car rolling before she changed her mind and decided to do it later, which is exactly what started to happen, but I just kept persevering. So that brought me to a point to where I was begging for my own recovery, which, as it turns out, took 5 years after that. And I ended up in Narcotics Anonymous for 17 years, and I had a real troubled time trying to get continuous long-term sobriety. It seems like long-term sobriety was there for many. Some of us didn't have that path. At 17 years of Narcotics Anonymous, I was on another slip, so I ended up in Central Oregon around family and decided to get back to program. I had a little nudge from the judge. I managed to get 2 DUIs within a 2-week period. After getting my record completely clear and moved from California to Oregon, I thought I was going to start over, and I did. I started over in the Deschutes County Jail. And I realized that there was only one Narcotics Anonymous meeting a week, and that wasn't going to work for me, so I switched over to Alcoholics Anonymous. When I switched over to Alcoholics Anonymous, I got a sponsor that directed me to use the steps as it relates to alcohol, and I'd never done that before. All those years of sobriety, I'd never looked at the disease of alcoholism through the window of Alcoholics Anonymous. And in working the steps as it relates to alcohol, it seemed to open up some doors that I had never considered. And one of those major doors was I came to realize that I was not the black sheep of the family. I wasn't special, that everybody had an equal distribution of the dis-ease, and it all took different forms. So I started to understand the family disease of alcoholism and where I was at in that unit. But what that helped to do was to alleviate the loneliness, because I felt like the rest of the family had it together and I was the one that needed to get my shit together, and that wasn't the case at all. And when my eyes were opened to what was going on around me, as it relates to alcohol, it gave me some serious horsepower to move forward in the program. So I ended up working the steps in Alcoholics Anonymous and then in Al-Anon back to back, and I had a spiritual awakening that I'd never seen before that set me at ease. I had never had that kind of absence of ill at ease in all of my sobriety until I took that course. And so it truly was the disease as it relates to alcohol. What that did was it opened up an understanding of how the disease was transferred and handed down generation to generation to generation. And I was able to go back and discover some of the relatives that had passed away and how their disease of alcoholism had affected the family. I got to see how a death from my father's brother when he was 17 years old, getting shot in the woods, how that affected the dynamic of the alcoholic family, of which there were 13 kids. And I guess my grandfather went into even more drinking. And then I ended up with a father that was an untreated Al-Anon. And what that meant was that he was angry all the time. And he kept everybody in the family on eggshells. And so the rest of the family members turned to alcohol and pot and what have you to live in that structure. And this is how the disease of alcoholism gets handed down from family member to family member. It's actually like Father Tom Weston talks about his situation was a reverse of mine. It was his father was the alcoholic that was peaceful and on the couch passed out, and it was mom in the kitchen with the knives that worried everybody. You know, it was that untreated Al-Anon that made the whole family crazy. And I'd never looked at that before. And when I started to look at that, the lights really came on. This is a monster disease, and it's really hard to recover if we're not looking down the right alleyway as to where things took a turn. It's not anybody's fault. It may have started when Christ turned water into wine. That was his contribution to alcoholics.
Wow.
And it also provided the answer. In working the steps, I realized that it's not my job to change. It's not in my power to change. It's not in my power to forgive anybody, but it is in my power to turn that over and to focus on having a connection with a power greater than myself. As I traveled through the steps, I noticed that the steps pulled me through the program instead of having to push. I got to a place where I was excited to work the next step and the next step because I was getting a lot of traction out of it. And in the third step, we turn our life and our will over to the care of this higher power. So we have a new employer. We're no longer in charge. And when I first came to the program, they told me to suit up and show up, so I put a suit on. And that was the oddest thing in Narcotics Anonymous, to show up in a freaking suit. You know, and I had some age-old sponsee of many walk up to me and ask me if I'd ever considered getting into the life insurance business, and my father and I had a discussion, and I had made a decision because my sponsor told me, and when I asked my sponsor what he thought I should do for a living, I made up my mind I was going to take whatever he said and allow myself to believe that it came directly from my higher power. And that seems to be the real power behind the decisions that I make. If I just assume that it's not the human that's actually directing my life, but it's actually God working through them. And so what ended up is I've been a financial planner for school district employees for 35 years now, and it's something I can even do in retirement. The whole job is turned into something I can do anywhere on the planet. As long as I have a computer hookup. That was a big gift that came out of the pandemic. You know, if we allow our higher power to direct our lives, we find that challenging situations lead us to decisions we wouldn't have had the power to make before. And we make decisions that we would have never made before, based on how we've changed as a result of working the steps. Not because we're trying to make better decisions, but because better decisions happen. And I was so relieved, it took so much pressure off me to understand that I didn't have to do it. That all things are possible through my understanding of my higher power. Thanks for letting me share.
Beautiful. Oh my goodness, thank you. I love listening to you. I always hear something wise. I always get a pearl from, you. I can always count on you in that way. And feeling really blessed to have a personal story shared on the show today. I mean, this is really, sacred and real. And it gives, I hope, everybody and anybody who is either in recovery or suffering from addiction the opportunity to take a look at there is a solution.